In this video, we are going to have a look at this 7 Artisan 35mm f/0.95 lens. This lens is designed for mirrorless camera with APS-C or micro four thirds sensor. The price of this lens is only $250, which make it one of the most affordable f/0.95 lens in the market. Now, the price is definitely very attractive, but how is the quality of this lens? Let's find out in this video. Kia ora, good morning everyone, Richard here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to have a look at this 7 Artisan 35mm f/0.95 lens. The sample I use for this review is for micro four thirds camera, but this lens is also available for the Fuji X, Sony E and also Nikon Z APS-C mirrorless cameras. Okay, let's start and talk about the design and build quality of this lens first. This 7 Artisan lens is a completely mechanical and fully manual lens. There's no autofocus, there's no electronic contacts, there's no image stabilizer, so everything is completely manual and fully mechanical. We have the aperture ring at the top, which is a decrypted aperture from f/0.95 all the way to f/16, and below that we have the focus ring, which has the travel throw of around 90 degrees. The manual focus ring feels quite smooth, and I find it reasonably easy to get precise focus even when I'm shooting at the maximum aperture f/0.95. When you turn the focus ring to the infinity side, it actually goes slightly beyond infinity, so you have to move back a little bit to get the exact infinity focus. All the markings on the lens are engraved instead of just print over, which give it a slightly more premium feeling. And one thing I found really cool is the rear lens mount. It has a, how do you call it, like a gunmetal or like a shadow chrome color instead of the normal shiny silver chrome color. That's definitely one of the first things I noticed when I received the lens, as I found the color makes the lens looks very unique and looks very cool. The whole lens is made of metal and it feels pretty solid. The weight of this lens is around 370 grams, so it feels pretty dense as well, but I probably won't call it a heavy lens. This lens doesn't come with any lens hood, and there's also no special mount at the front for you to install a lens hood. So the only way for you to install a lens hood is if you can find a aftermarket lens hood that can screw onto its 52mm front filter thread. Okay, now let's look at the image quality, and as usual start from the center sharpness first. At the maximum aperture f/0.95, the center is a little bit soft and there's also quite a bit of glow around the high contrast area. Stop down to f/1.4, the center becomes a lot sharper and the glow has also reduced dramatically. At f2, the center becomes very sharp and all the glow has disappeared. So even if you stop down further, the center sharpness wouldn't improve anymore. Now if we look at the corners, at f/0.95, the corner is really quite soft. Stop down the lens would improve the corner sharpness gradually. At f/2.8, the corner sharpness become pretty decent, and the corner sharpness would improve a little bit more if you stop down to f4. Bokeh in general is quite nice, especially if your subject is at a close distance. You can dissolve the background very nicely and smoothly, and even if you stop down the lens a little bit, the bokeh is still reasonably round and pleasant looking. However, sometimes I notice the bokeh can get a little bit nervous looking with a bit of halo around the edge of the bokeh. The more nervous bokeh seems to happen more often when my subject is a little bit further away. Not too sure if it's because I'm testing the micro four thirds version of this lens, but vignetting control is surprisingly well for this f/0.95 lens. Even at f/0.95, the amount of vignetting is already very low. And when I stop down to f/1.4, then vignetting is virtually not noticeable. Chromatic aberration control is average with this lens, and I can see some color fringing in a number of my sample photos. I would not say it's terrible, especially consider a lot of these photos were shot at f/0.95, But chromatic aberration is something you have to watch out for when shooting high contrast scene with this 7 Artisan lens. This 35mm f0.95 lens has a small amount of barrel distortion. The distortion can be easily removed during post-processing, but for a 35mm prime lens, I do expect the amount of distortion would be a little bit less than that. Lens flare is probably not the strongest area for this lens. When shooting directly into a very bright light source, the contrast would drop a bit and I can also see a bit of ghosting. Unfortunately, unlike a lot of other lenses that you can stop down the lens a little bit and that can get rid of most of the ghosting, with this 7 Artisan lens, even when I stop down to f2.8, I can still see quite a bit of ghosting. Stop down the lens to around f5.6 and the lens would start render some pretty nice looking 12-point sun stars. The sun stars are very nice and clean when I am taking photos at around f11. One thing I noticed when I was doing the sun star test is, when taking photo at the maximum aperture f0.95, when there is a strong point light source, there could be quite a bit of like a round light blob near the light source, which could look a little bit distracting. But luckily that would disappear when I stop down the lens to around f4. Probably because the front element will move front and back when you are changing the focus distance. So this lens does have a bit of focus briefing when you are changing the focus distance. While this 7 Artisan lens is not exactly a macro lens, but its minimum focus distance is only 37 cm, and that allows you to use this lens to take some nice close-up photos. Here are some handheld close-up photos that I shot with this lens at around f2 to f2.8. I think the overall image quality and the sharpness is pretty decent when taking close-up photos with this lens. For a f0.95 lens that costs less than $250, I was a bit worried that this lens would be kind of a disaster, but luckily this is not the case at all. The build quality of this lens is pretty decent. I think 7 Artisan definitely spent more effort when they are designing this lens compared to a lot of other similar lenses at this price range. I really like the shadow chrome on the rear mount, which makes the lens looks really cool, and all the engraved marking on the lens also make the lens feel a bit more premium and better built compared to some other similar price lenses in the market. Picture quality wise, this is not perfect. The corner sharpness, the amount of focus briefing, and also the flare resistance could all be a little bit better. But when we talk about picture quality, we really should consider the price and other factor of this lens. So for a f0.95 lens that is only around $250, I think the picture quality is very acceptable and, to be honest, a little bit better than what I expected. The center sharpness is pretty good. There is very minimal amount of vignetting, and the quality of the bokeh is usually very nice, especially when the subject is at a close distance. So if you are shooting with a Micro Four Thirds or APS-C mirrorless camera and want to try out a f0.95 lens, this 7 Artisan 35mm f0.95 lens is a pretty decent and very affordable choice for you.